outside of who didn't live in Sydney. So it's worked very well in Western Australia. We've mischievously said over the years on our website to never stand between Republicans and visiting royalty, otherwise you'll be knocked over in the rush. And that is a mischievous way. But the wonderful thing is that both Republicans and monarchists like to see the Queen. They're delighted to see her. We saw that in Canberra at the big reception in Parliament House. It was absolutely full, a little anarchic, but absolutely full. And the Queen and the Duke were marvellous in the way that they met everybody. And people enjoyed that.
And Professor Flint, we see Her Majesty's comfort here in meeting people at a fairly formal event nonetheless, and tomorrow of course is all about formality with the opening of CHOGM. But Saturday, the Great Aussie Barbecue. You've been observing Her Majesty for a long time. How comfortable is she at attending something titled the Great Aussie Barbecue, where she'll get to meet 200,000 or so of her closest friends in Perth, compared to the young woman who first came here? How much have events around Her Majesty changed in terms of formality?
I think they've become certainly more informal, but so has our society. For example, on Sundays, it seems to be the rule on the ABC on the other channel that men don't wear ties. It would have been inconceivable 20 years ago when television started for men to appear on television without ties, except at sporting events.
Well, you and I are holding up tradition.
Yes, and the whole of society has become far more informal. It's probably a good thing, particularly in a hot country.
And within limits, has Her Majesty also become a little more informal? That's probably not the right word, but where she is utterly comfortable at something as informal as, for example, the Great Aussie Barbecue.
Yes, well, the Royal Walkabout started in Australia. They experimented with the idea of the Queen mingling with people who come to see her, going out in the street and speaking to people. That began in Australia, and obviously they decided they would experiment with that in Australia. So you've had that. You've had more openness about royal families. You had the cameras come into Buckingham Palace. Whether that was a good idea when they had the picnic where they all appeared together. The Queen still doesn't give interviews, but younger members of the royal family occasionally will give interviews. I'm not so sure whether members of the royal family and governors should do that, because they're not really into that sort of thing, unless it's a very specific thing they're talking about.
Well, as we see the Queen walking along this line of well-wishers, of WA folks keen to meet her, what about this walkabout idea, the idea where walkabout began? Why did it begin in Australia?
I think it was a wish to communicate more, a wish to be less formal, to move there's always a wish to move the Crown into the new century, and of course it tends to lag a little behind because of the formalities which surround the Crown, because many of the people who are associated with the Crown try to hold on to things. We saw this controversy about the Prime Minister not curtsying to the Queen. Now, it was perfectly proper for the Prime Minister not to curtsy, but some people were offended by that. They felt that the Prime Minister should have curtsied, but time had moved on. Men and women are more equal. I hope they're completely equal, and that the Prime Minister decided that she was more comfortable bowing, and she didn't have to do that either, I think was perfectly acceptable, and I think she's been unfairly criticised for not curtsying. I myself like the curtsy, but that's just a question of taste. I think women look wonderful when they curtsy, as the Governor-General did.
Professor David Flint, appreciate your insights. Let's go back to outside Government House. I believe Andrew O'Connor is back on the line there. Andrew, it seems like this has been a huge task undertaken by Her Majesty. She is meeting hundreds of that 1,500 or so you estimated were there.
Well, I suspect every one of the people that were in that long line that stretched around the block, Scott, would have been hoping to have a word with her and to shake her hand and to welcome her personally to Perth. I thought your remark about Nick Bryant's comment that Australians seem not to be so much Republicans or monarchists, but Elizabethans. That certainly seems to be the sentiment that is coming through from the people that I've spoken to here. They do seem less interested, less curious and less concerned about the state of the monarchy as an institution, but they seem very, very engaged by Queen Elizabeth as a person. I think it was Tom Camellia the other day that said that the Queen these days is something of a rock star, and a very good rock star at that. and I'm not sure whether it's the celebrity or the dignity that she has brought to the office, or just her general warmth and her demeanour. But there's no question that here, everyone from the top of society right down to average people like me on the outside of the fence are still here trying to just get a glimpse and be a part of this royal visit.
Well, Andrew, as we speak, we're seeing pictures of Her Majesty not only going along the line and shaking hands and meeting people, she's stopping and chatting, reiterating what you're talking about there, and throwing ahead to Saturday. We know the formalities of tomorrow with CHOGM, but tell us a bit more about the Great Aussie Barbecue. Professor Flint and I have been talking about that. Tell us how many are expected at that. Where's it being held?
It's being held on the foreshore here, overlooking the Swan River. There are already preparations in place. I can see today where they've fenced off a huge area on the Esplanade for an anticipated crowd of anything up to 100,000 people. Now, Her Majesty is going to arrive with the Duke of Edinburgh at around 10 past 11. She's going to take a slow motorcade from Government House down to the Esplanade. That is going to be one of the best opportunities, we're told, for people to get a glimpse of the Queen as she makes her way down there. When she arrives at the Esplanade, she's going to be again met by Colin Barnett and his wife Lynn. There will be a national anthem and the normal formalities, and then she is going to move to a walkway to circulate and be able to meet people. There are 3 barbecues that are set up at the location. One is being manned by one of our celebrity chefs, Vince Gariffa from Mondo Butchers. Now, he is going to have a team of his trained chefs preparing some fare that we expect both the Queen and the Duke to sample at this barbecue. Now, this barbecue is going to be the final stop, and I think that is one of the reasons why people are anticipating a very big crowd. Again, with this visit, as with recent visits, there has been speculation that this may be the Queen's final visit to Australia, perhaps her final visit to Western Australia. So I think people here have got a very keen sense that this may not only be a good opportunity to see her, but may well be the last opportunity. She'll be leaving the barbecue just before midday and then flying out, ending her visit to Australia.
Perhaps with a WA sausage or 2 in hand to enjoy for the flight home. Andrew O'Connor in Perth, outside Government House. May your quest to get inside those gates prove successful, but in the meantime, I very much appreciate you talking to us here.
Thank you very much, Scott.
And Professor David Flint, your insights and perspectives have been terrific, and I thank you very much for joining me here on the desk.
Thank you.